Heroes of Evrawin, written by Linder. A male figure, lit only by flames, stretches his hand up toward the cosmos. I know you are out there. His words offered no response. Can you hear me? Again, he is met with only silence. Can you not sense my power? Prologue. Creation, Year 0. Many have wasted their lives in search for the knowledge of creation. Where did everything come from? How did life begin? Some have reached beyond the realm of reality and have discovered the truth. Though knowledge such as this proved too overwhelming and crushed those who were able to discover it, but not before they managed to pass on small fragments of what they had learned. A formless entity without thought or even reason that has become dubbed as the Source is believed to be what created everything in existence, every life, and every world. The Source can only be described as an energy that is everywhere and nowhere. Though the Source isn't alive, it still requires life energy to exist. But what is life energy? Nothing can exist without it. Every living being, from the largest of beasts to the simplest flower, contains life energy. This energy is spread throughout the cosmos and is contained within each world as well. When a being is brought into life, a small piece of this energy is taken and given to the new life. As the being grows, the energy grows with it. Eventually that being gives birth to more life, and the process continues. How did all this begin, though? The Source is made from this energy, and gave parts of itself away to create this process. This energy manifested itself into the physical realm, creating stars and planets. Within these systems, the energy was used to create life that would grow this energy and reproduce to create even more. Eventually, though, all life comes to an end. Once a being has died, all of the energy it had accumulated over its lifespan is returned to the planet from which it came. This energy is then split apart and melded with the energies of other beings, and then is used to create even more life. In time, even the planet itself will die, along with all the stars in the galaxy, and in time, all that energy will collect and once again return to the Source. The Source gives off a small portion of itself, and in return, life is allowed to exist, and one day return a greater amount of energy back to itself. So, is life nothing but food for the Source? Perhaps. Many would hope for a greater purpose to life, but the reality isn't necessarily so glorious. While this may be the truth, it does not diminish what life is and what can be done with it. Life is a great gift that should not be wasted. Now, if the Source was to stop this process, or if something was to go wrong with the process, it would fade out and existence would once again cease to exist. Once discovering this knowledge, some have come to worship the Source as a god. But the Source is not a thinking and feeling being. It doesn't create out of love or any reason but to continue to exist. While some have delved deep into the energy and learned this, there is more knowledge that even fewer have discovered. Each world is created with 3 beings that govern over it. These beings have also been labeled as gods, and they just might be the closest things to such an idea. They are known as the Spark, the Void, and the Balance. Each is created with a purpose and with free will to create as they see fit. The gods are able to experiment and create new life the cosmos has never before seen. This system is to attempt to find a better world and a better type of life that will better reproduce and generate greater energy. When the time comes and the world dies along with those who inhabit it, all of the energy and knowledge will be returned to the source, and that knowledge will be passed on. The jobs of these gods are very specific and important. The void is to create and shape the very world itself, creating mountains, oceans, plains, and every other type of terrain that could come to support life. The process is destructive. It takes many years of chaos before the world can finally become stable and ready for life. The spark fills the world that the void created with life. Plains of dirt become forests. Empty oceans are filled with untold amounts of sea life. Even the air becomes populated with various creatures. These beings start off simple and grow, adapt and evolve, becoming smarter and better suited to live longer and reproduce more. After countless years, truly intelligent life can even exist. The powers the spark and the void display are truly incredible. They both use the very powers of the world itself to create everything. The life they create also uses this energy. The energy can be used for knowledge and strength. It can be used to build and create. It also can be used to destroy. The energy can be abused. Certain worlds have met their end due to this abuse. This is the reason the third God is given to each world: the balance. The balance has only one job, and that is to protect the world and the energy, to make sure that the energy is not abused and stays pure. If the powers were to become abused, and the process to build energy and return it to the source was in jeopardy, the balance would take steps to prevent it. The balance has the ability to limit and even seal away the energy of the world from the life inhabiting it, and even from the spark and void themselves. This is all that intelligent beings have been able to discover, and even some is only guesswork. But the knowledge runs so much deeper than anyone could ever discover. The source gives away a piece of energy that will, in time, become millions of stars and millions of planets, creating countless forms of life. Within this process, one such world is created that its inhabitants would one day come to call Evrawin. The void takes name and begins to create and shape the world. The spark takes name and fills the world that has been created with life. The balance, which does not take a name, but instead takes an unknown form and remains watchful. After an unimaginable amount of time, the process is complete, and life begins to flourish, and the gods rest. But there is a problem. The free will that is given to these beings sometimes comes at a price, and in the world of Evrawin, this price is great. The void, during its long rest, begins to become lonely and longs to rejoin the source. As the millennium pass, the void tries to resist, but the solitude becomes too much to bear. The energies that reside within Evrawin will remain there until the world itself is destroyed, a process that could take billions of years, and the void is aware of this. The void begins a truly terrifying rampage, destroying everything that it and the spark had created. Mountains are ripped apart. Destructive magma flows from the very core of the world. Oceans are raised and washed over the land. Millions of lives of all types are lost in an instant. The spark attempts to combat the void and stop its rampage, but the spark's power cannot compare to the void's, and is defeated. The world of Evrawin was on the brink of total destruction. With no other choice, the balance awakens and seals both the spark and the void's powers. The void, its great powers now sealed away, sunk back into the world, giving up physical form, and began to wait once again for the end, his solitude turning quickly to sadness and rage. Not all life was stomped out by the void's torment, and soon begins to flourish once again. Before long, plants begin to flourish, fish begin to swim, and birds begin to fly. In time, intelligent beings populate the land once again. Villages begin to form, soon followed by entire kingdoms. Peace, at least from powers beyond those of mortal men, remains, though in the world of man, it, as always, is temporary. Chapter 1, Year 464. Two boys, held tightly by their mother, lay wet and struck with fear on a soaked wooden floor. Their small, hastily built home ravaged by the terrible beasts just outside, along with the terrible storm that had torn away entire sections of the roof and walls. What remained of the walls had terrible claw marks running through them, left by the demons searching for the next kill. The mother looked upon her husband, the father of her children, who stood vigilant between them and the door. The older, brute of a man, his immense strength earned from a long life in the field, stood ready with an old rusted axe in his hands, prepared to do what he must to protect his family. Rain poured through the parts of the roof that had been blown off by the violent storm or torn away by flying demons. Lightning cracked and thunder shook the house, causing the boys and their mother to cry out in fear. A year prior, a deep bellowing sound echoed through the land that was heard by all. What caused this event was yet to be discovered, but what followed was the real terror. Thousands of demons and creatures never before imagined began ravaging the land. These demons tore through the landscape and villages of man, killing all in their path. The kingdom of Famir, along with its allies, made their best attempts at fighting this threat, though hope was long gone. Demons twice the size of the largest man, with teeth and claws sharper than any sword, fought against entire squads of men and still emerged the victor. Some demons appeared to wear armor made from jagged metal and bone that was tougher than anything man could create, though it wasn't armor at all, but rather it was a part of their very bodies. Some wielding weapons, such as axes or great two-handed swords that appeared to be made from the same materials. Others were protected by their thick, pitch-black leather skin and relied on their sharp claws or teeth to kill their target. Though their appearances differed, they all had the same shadowy aura that surrounded their bodies. For every demon that was killed, several men died as well, if not many more. With hope lost, all survivors sought refuge in the villages surrounding the various large kingdoms left in the land. One of these kingdoms was the legendary kingdom of Famir. Strong magic protected Famir and its surrounding villages. The people began to believe they were safe, only to have whatever hopes they still clung to shattered once again. The sounds of claws and teeth scraping against their staggering wooden home sent horrible chills into the cowering family. A loud pounding began to rattle the thin wooden door, which was the only thing standing between them and a terrible death. Each pound at the door was louder than the next, as the wood began to splinter. The father knew their time had come, and the demons would break through into their home at any moment. Looking back, the older man watched as his wife tried to comfort their two young sons, ages 7 and 8, and he began to picture what the demons would do to them. The father knelt down next to his family, laying his old axe on the floor, and placed a hand on each of his sons' heads. "Turles," the man said as he stroked his older son's face, as the little boy cried heavily from fear. The father then looked at his other younger son, his face buried in his mom's chest. He grabbed the boy's chin and turned his head to face him. "Torlin." The man smiled and paused, just to look at his sons, but was then stricken with pure terror as the door finally gave in, and with a loud crash came flying inward. With no other choice, the dad picked up his axe, wielding it with both hands, then turned to face the snarling beast. A shadowy beast walking on all 4 of its legs, a thick tail whipping around aggressively behind it, entered the home. Sharp and deadly horns covered its body from its head to the tip of its tail. The demon snarled, making a terrible guttural growling sound, its claws gripping into the damp wooden floor as he walked. The beast's soulless black eyes locked on the family, and wasted no time leaping for the father. With no hesitation, the brave old man charged to meet this terrible foe. The father swung his axe as powerfully as he could. The blade, perfectly aimed at the beast's neck, was stopped short as the beast whipped its head back, blocking the blade with a horn that was jutting out from the back of its head. The demon responded by standing up on its hind legs and swinging at the father with its massive claws. The man was able to jump back out of the way to avoid the full attack, but he was still slashed by the creature. The aged father fell to his knees, gripping at his chest, as blood slipped through his fingers and dripped to the damp wooden floor beneath him from 3 deep gashes left by the demon's claws. Looking up, he saw that the demon had lost interest in him and now had its evil gaze fixed on his family. Doing the best he could to ignore the intense pain, he stood up, gripping the axe tightly once again, and rushed forward, swinging his axe downwards as hard as he could, catching the demon by surprise. The blade cut through the bone horns that curved backwards behind its head, and it sunk deep into the flesh of the shadowy creature. The demon turned quickly, ripping the axe, still stuck in its body, out of the father's hands. The demon made a terrible guttural growling sound once again, then staggered backwards, before rushing at the now defenseless father and ramming into him. The long bone horns protruding from its head easily pierced through the man's body, slamming him hard against the wooden wall. After a moment, the demon stepped back, with the father still impaled, suspended upon the deadly horns. With a violent shake, the demon sent the man's broken body rolling across the floor, along with the axe. The father, laying on the ground dying and struggling to breathe, heard the cries of his wife and children. The demon drew in closer to deliver a horrible killing blow, when the father looked up to notice his wife, holding the axe that had become dislodged from the creature's back, standing behind the demon. With the demon distracted, she chopped downward with the axe, using all the strength she could summon, cutting deep into the back of the demon. After a loud and terrible growl of pain, the demon whipped its tail at the woman, piercing her body with the dozens of horns that protruded from it, sending her now lifeless body flying across the room. The demon looked at the mother, who was now dead, then at the father, who would soon join her, then towards the 2 remaining children. The demon growled, almost as if laughing at his victory, then began walking towards the boys. The father tried to call out, to tell them to run. He tried to move, but he could not. After just watching his wife be brutally killed, he would now be forced to watch his children share the same fate. As the beast drew in closer to the defenseless boys, sudden bright flashes of pink light began to burst from outside of the home that shone through the open entryway and the broken parts of the walls. The pink flashes lit up the room again and again, soon followed by the dying cries of the demons. Before too long, everything was silent besides the demon, now snarling and preparing to kill again, unconcerned with the events from outside. A loud metal clashing against metal noise, coming from the entrance to the destroyed home, grabbed the demon's attention. Both of the boys looked up and watched as an armored man walked into the home, with his sword drawn and with a shield strapped to his arm. The aged soldier, gashes in his armor and blood covering his face, looked at the demon and shouted, "Hey!" The demon turned completely around and hunched downward, preparing to attack. "That's right, you ugly beast. Come get me!" His voice was confident and demanding. The demon took a few steps forward, then quickly spun in a circle, whipping its tail violently around. With little effort, the soldier blocked the tail with his shield, creating a terrible scratching noise that pained the ear as the horn scraped across the metal. After the failed attack, the demon wasted no time leaping towards the armored soldier. The brave soldier stepped aside, striking his blade across the beast's horn-covered body, which was soon followed by howls of pain as his blade cut deeply into the creature's side. The demon whipped its tail once again, to no avail, as the soldier raised his shield again to deflect it. The horrible scratching noise ripped through the air once again. The soldier then struck the demon with a flurry of blows from both his sword and with his shield. The boys had never seen anything so amazing and were frozen in awe. All fear of the ghastly situation they were in had completely vanished. Before long, the demon laid on the wooden floor, bleeding out, unable to move and gasping for breaths. The soldier slowly stepped towards the creature and stood over it for a moment before he stabbed his sword through the demon's head, killing it. The victorious soldier placed his blade into its scabbard hanging on his waist, then looked around. What he saw was a terrible sight that was all too common these days. The soldier checked the mother first. She was unfortunately already gone. He then checked the father for signs of life. The father was alive, but his injuries were too great, and he wouldn't last much longer. The aged soldier looked over in the boy's direction, then leaned in close to their father and spoke softly in his ear. "I will make sure they are well taken care of. You can go peacefully knowing they will be in good hands," he said. The father managed a grateful smile before exhaling his final breath. Standing up, the soldier fixed his gaze on the boys, still huddled together. The armored soldier knelt down beside the boys and placed one hand on each of their shoulders. "It's okay," the man said gently. "Everything will be fine." With that, the gentle soldier lifted the boys up, carrying them away from the horror they had just witnessed. The following morning, the boys awoke in a small wooden home, one much nicer than any they had lived in for a very long time. They each had their own bed, with some kind of animal fur blanket and a soft pillow stuffed with feathers. The brothers looked at each other, not really able to remember just how they got there, but both began to remember the terrible events the night prior. Before they could put too much thought to it, the door burst open, and they were greeted by the older soldier that had saved them. Instead of wearing the stunning armor he had worn last night, the old scarred warrior now wore the traditional casual wear for the soldiers of Famir. His cotton shirt was dyed a light purple with white trim, along with black pants. On his chest, the Famir emblem of a purple sun rising from the darkness. In a gentle yet commanding voice, he spoke. "Good morning, young ones. I brought you both some breakfast." The soldier held up a bowl in each hand in front of himself. "Once you are done eating, you will find some clean clothes in the dressers next to your beds. Put them on and come find me outside." With that, the soldier placed the bowls on the table and left the small wooden one-room home, shutting the door behind him. The two boys were overwhelmed with emotion and did not want to eat, but their hunger drove them to the table regardless. The boys practically inhaled a meal consisting of one boiled egg, a small warm half loaf of bread, and a simple vegetable broth. It was a common meal with times as hard as they were. Once the boys had finished their meal, they changed into the clothes that they found in their dressers. They were the same type of clothes that the soldier wore. Both boys changed into the clothes, then looked at each other, not knowing what was to become of them. They exited the home. It was a sunny day without a cloud in the sky, though the ground was soaked through from the terrible storm the night before. Once their eyes adjusted to the blinding light, they both took in their surroundings. The brothers saw hundreds of wooden shacks, similar to the one they woke up in. They saw tall stone walls surrounding everything they could see. Most impressive of all was the castle. All spoke of the marvelous Famir castle, so much so even the boys had heard of it. As they looked upon it, they both knew the stories didn't do it justice. The boys were lost in the sights when a loud sound of a man clearing his throat interrupted their thoughts. They looked upon the soldier that rescued them, along with several other children, both older and younger than they. "I see you are ready. Come over here and stand in line with the others," said the older seasoned soldier, as he motioned to the other children, who were in a side-by-side line. The boys did as they were told and joined the line. The soldier stood in front of them, tall and imposing, and looked at each one of them. The man then took a deep breath and spoke. My name is Captain Genra Barosh. You will address me as Captain Barosh. I am a soldier in the Famir army and have been for the last 30 years of my life. I am sure you have many questions, and I hope to answer them here and now. Captain Barosh paused, preparing his speech that was well rehearsed, and to his dismay, spoken many times before. Look around at the others next to you. The boys all looked around at each other. Without even needing to ask, they all knew that their backgrounds were similar. Young men caught in the terrors caused by the demon war. Most likely each boy here orphaned by last night's attack. Captain Barosh cleared his throat to regain their attention. What happened last night cannot be undone, and each of you will have to find your own way of dealing with the pain. Pain and anger surged through each of the boys' faces. Now, the reason each of you is standing here before me, as some of you have already figured out, is that you all show some promise of becoming soldiers of Famir. It's a tough life, but it can offer greatness. You have the chance to see the world and create great stories to tell your children someday. If you can survive the training and serve the crown well, the rewards will be great. The two boys he had saved personally did not seem interested in his words. Captain Barosh thought about what to say for a moment, then added, besides the fame and riches, if you work hard and succeed, you can also get revenge against these demons and help bring an end to this terrible war. This had both brothers lifting their heads and focusing on what he had to say now. Captain Barosh looked directly at them, seeing something more in them that he did not see in the others. Barosh looked sternly at both of the boys, as if only speaking to them. I will teach you how to become strong. I will teach you how to fight and survive. With these tools, you can get vengeance on these foul beasts and help eradicate them from this world. Now, introduce yourselves. Each boy took turns to speak their names, though most were quiet and shy. When it came to the last boys, both with short brown hair and the same eyes, brothers, Barosh assumed. They looked directly at him and said their names loud and proudly. Turles Lethal, said the first boy, soon followed by Torlin Lethal. Their voices shook all the other boys. Barosh could tell that there was something very special about the two brothers, and that they would go far, ever seeking to avenge their parents' deaths. Listen up. First thing I will teach you is how to salute, said Captain Barosh. The commanding soldier began to explain how to salute while performing the motions. Both hands balled into fists at your sides, with your feet together. All the boys followed his instructions. Stand tall and never slouch. You are now a respected Famir soldier, and you will always stand tall. Each boy straightened up. Good. Now, take your right fist and hit it against your chest, and hold it there, soon followed with a loud, Ha! Barosh completed the salute. His shout was loud and commanding for all around to hear him. Quietly, one boy went first, soon followed by the sporadic shouts from others. Louder! Barosh commanded. All of the boys shouted again, this time louder and in more unison. Come on, grow a pair and shout it with everything you have. Make your enemies know you are ready to kill. Turles and Torlin looked at each other. They slammed their fists into their chests so hard that it hurt, and shouted at the top of their lungs. Ha! The other boys all did the same. Again! Shouted Barosh. Ha! Cried the boys. Ha! Hey, thank you for checking out the Heroes of Evrawin audiobook sample. Hopefully you liked what you heard. The full book is available for purchase or pre-order on Amazon right now. There will be a link in the comments and description below. If you are interested in knowing the rest of the story, please head over there and buy it. Be sure to tell me what you thought down in the comments, and if you do purchase it on Amazon, be sure to read it and leave an amazing review afterwards.